We're halfway through June, so I guess I better talk about my summer knitting plans. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Knitted by Whitney YouTube channel. We're halfway through June, so I guess I better talk about my summer knitting plans. I kind of dropped the ball going from spring to summer because here in Nova Scotia, we typically don't get a spring. We typically go straight from like mushy late winter to all of a sudden it's hot and summery. But this year we actually got a decent spring and it's been lovely. And I've been taking lots of opportunities to go outside, to see the flowers, see my beloved cherry blossoms, and I've just really been enjoying the moment. So it kind of slipped my mind that I hadn't yet done a summer knitting plans video, and I've got a lot to share about what I worked on in the spring, what got done, what didn't, some really fun projects that popped up in the spring, and what am I going to be knitting on this summer? So I'm one of those knitters that it doesn't matter the season, I'm always knitting on something. I don't necessarily knit items for the upcoming season. I'm not really much of a planning knitter. Although, ironically, I am filming a summer knitting plans video. But what I mean to say is that I don't knit for the spring in the winter, and I don't knit for the summer in the spring. I knit what I feel like knitting on, and sometimes that is an object that is particular to the current season that I'm in. So this past spring, not only did I work on some spring-appropriate patterns, but I also worked on some that are not for spring at all. And I've got some patterns that I have started that are whips now that are going to be great for the summer. And I've got some that are a little more far-reaching. So without further ado, let's get into my summer knitting plans. Like I've done for my past knitting plans videos, I'm first going to show you the progress that I made on the whips that I was working on when I recorded my last planning video, which was my spring knitting plans, and then I'll get into what I'm taking into the summer for summer knitting plans, as well as any new cast-ons that I'm hoping to do in the summer. First, I want to say that I had some fun projects come up that derailed my spring knitting plans, so I have some things that I did not talk about in that video that in at least one case are finished. But I had opportunities come up that I just couldn't say no to, and I was really excited about, so I chose to do them. And I've kind of rejigged what I'm going to be taking into the summer based on some of those opportunities. So some of the things that I said I was going to either work on or cast on for the spring, I didn't get to. But let's start with some of the things that I finished in the spring. It will come as no surprise to you that I finished my souffle. So this is my long sleeved version. I have previously knit two short sleeve versions, but I really wanted a long sleeve version. And I started this in the fall. So this originally was a fall knitting project, then it became a winter project, then it wrapped up in spring. So this is a project that has gone through 3 seasons. It has taken me quite a while, but it was worth every second. And I was making this, hoping to finish it by the time that the cherry blossoms were in bloom here in Nova Scotia. And when I was judging it by last year the cherry blossoms came out rather early. They came out really at the the middle to the beginning of May. This year they came out closer to like the 3rd and 4th week of May. And I finished my sweater in April, so I was well ahead of my intended plan of taking pictures with the cherry blossoms. In fact, I took my original finished object photos of this sweater during a snowstorm because we got walloped with a late winter snowstorm, and it just was too good of a photo opportunity to pass up. So I did take photos in the snow with this pattern, and they turned out really cute. I do really like them. But then I happily got to take my finished object photos with the cherry blossoms, and it was so wonderful. It was exactly the experience that I had been trying to get for 3 years now. I think this was the 3rd or 4th year that I had tried to knit something to wear in order to take finished object photos with the cherry blossoms. I will say, because as time goes by, trees grow, obviously, it was harder to take photos with them than I had originally anticipated. So I got the best ones that I could. Shout out to my husband Doyle, who figured out the best way to take photos with the cherry blossoms, which was through holes in the fence, and I was on one side of the fence and he was on the other side, because the trees where we took the photos are just so tall now that they really don't have enough low branches to make it feel like you're surrounded by them. And I really should have tried to find younger cherry blossom trees. In fact, I do know where some are in Halifax that I could have taken photos with, but we ended up going over to the ones in Dartmouth because those are like the well-known ones here. So not exactly the pictures that I had hoped for, but they turned out absolutely beautiful. I'm so happy with the photos. Don't get me wrong there. I'm so happy with them, but like it was trickier than I thought it was going to be, and you know, I got in my head a little bit, and it was hard to get into the headspace for those pictures, but eventually we got some really beautiful ones. But that was my finished souffle, and that was my experience knitting it. I absolutely loved it. The sleeves ended up going by really quickly. Actually, why don't I just hang it up so I can talk about it? There we go. It was honestly such a great knitting experience. I really love this pattern. It's one that I get a lot of joy out of. It's one that I love the style. It's really up my alley. It's really something that makes me feel really beautiful, and it's a style that I love to wear. And I'm so happy to now have a long sleeved one. And I had these pink yarns in my stash, and I chose to use them for this pattern. So these are, the mohair is Sugarbush Yarns Drizzle in the color Puddle Pink. The company is no longer in operation, so you can't get that mohair anymore. And in the section where you hold 2 mohair yarns together, I have held 1 strand of the drizzle with 2 strands of Trailhead Yarns Cabot Trail, which is their tencel base, in the color Unicorn Tears, I think. And unfortunately, Trailhead Yarn Co. has shifted their business model. They no longer do yarn, they do embroidery floss. So you might still be able to find some in D-Stash, but probably can't get that one anymore either. And then I did end up using a slightly different yarn for the ruffle because I was working with discontinued yarns. I was very limited with what I had. So to sort of assuage my nerves, I used Knit Picks Aloft in the color Blush, I think it's called, for the ruffle. So it's a slightly darker pink than the rest of the sweater, but honestly, I absolutely love it. It really makes the ruffle stand out, but it's not too like contrasted with the rest of the sweater. And I'm just so happy with the result. I've worn it a lot. When I did Me Made May, this was one of my most worn pieces, and I absolutely loved it. So that is my first finished object from my spring knitting plans. Now you can probably guess that the second object that I finished from my spring knitting plans is in fact what I'm wearing. This is my Tolstati, but it's not just the Tolstati. I have combined together the Lorett pattern with the Tolstati. So I'm calling it my Lorett Tolstati. I currently have it on under a pair of overalls, but I do have photos of it. Actually, I might just be able to unhook my overalls. See if I can do this gracefully. There we go. I did think ahead and I attached my mic to my sweater rather than the overalls. But this is my Lorett Tolstati. And this one, not quite as successful as the souffle. I absolutely love both of the patterns. And the reason that I decided to smush them together, as I mentioned in previous podcast episodes, as well as my spring knitting plans video, is that I was gifted this yarn by my friend Madison of Florange Apparel. It is from her Shrek collection. The pink is, of course, you're a girl dragon, and the gray is, in the morning, I'm making waffles. And in case you couldn't tell, those are dragon and donkey's colors. They look so good together. I absolutely love them. I wanted to be able to showcase this yarn in time for Madison's collection launch. So the yarn was only available for a week at the beginning of February, and I was gifted the yarn in late January. I had originally intended to make the Lorett pattern, but it's a fingering weight sweater, and I really just couldn't get enough of that. I thought to myself, I can't get enough of that done in time to properly show it off for when Madison's collection goes live. So I pivoted, and I knew that she was making the Tolstati, and it was definitely a pattern on my list to make. And I decided to jig the Lorett lace yoke to work with the Tolstati. Now the Lorett starts as a lace circular yoke and then feeds into a raglan for the rest of the yoke. And it is a striping sequence very similar to what I have done on the Tolstati. Now, the Tolstati is meant to be incredibly customizable. You are supposed to take this pattern and run with it. Do whatever your heart desires with customizations and with either a striping pattern or lace or texture or colors, anything that you want to do with it, you can do it. However, I think there are limitations to that because I am not happy with the fit of mine, and I know it is because my yoke is too long, because I needed to do all of the rows of the Lorett pattern lace in order to finish it off and start doing the raglan. Now, all of my numbers matched up, so I started with a certain number of stitches to cast on that equaled that once you got to the end of the lace yoke pattern, it was the same number of stitches that I needed to then do raglan increases for the size that I was doing. So I did a lot of math. It was really tricky to figure it out, but it was worth it. I do love the look of it. But after finishing it, I realized it just doesn't fit me right. And it's because the yoke is too long. And not necessarily in the armpits, because it fits really nicely in the armpits. The neckline just comes up too high, and honestly, it starts to form this like mock turtleneck, which I don't like. I don't like things too close to my neck. I get very uncomfortable with that. So whenever I wear this t-shirt, I futz with it a lot. I did wear it to work on Friday, and I was just pulling at it all day, and it's something that I think could have been fixed if I had used a plant-based fiber that would have had more drape and that would have pulled the lace down. But really, I just think there are limitations to how much you can play around with the Tolstati. And the more I wear this t-shirt, the more I realize it's just not something that I can get a ton of wear out of, because I was hoping to have this as a layering piece. And honestly, I cannot wear it underneath a cardigan, because as soon as I put a cardigan on, even a loose one, it immediately pushes the neck of this sweater up and it starts to look all bunched, and it's just really uncomfortable for me. So if I do wear my Lorett Tolstati, I wear it by itself, or I wear it with a collared shirt underneath. I'm actually really a fan of wearing it that way. And I do have a white collared shirt that I wore under it earlier in the year. I finished this one in April, I think. So I did have this to wear for Me Made May, and I did wear it a couple times. And I do find that I like it with a collared shirt underneath to help keep this neckline from getting too close to my neck. So it's definitely one that doesn't get as much wear as I expected, and I do realize that it was the choices that I made that enabled it to be that way. But there is something else that I don't like about it that I think is pattern related, and that's the sleeves. Underneath, there's really only about an inch or an inch and a half before you cast off the sleeve. And that's in the pattern, you only have to do a very, very short sleeve. I kind of wish I had done a longer one, even though I love a little capped sleeve like this. I find because there's almost no sleeve underneath that whenever I move my arm, it pulls the whole body up and it just feels like it doesn't fit me right. So in any future versions of the Tolstati that I do, I will definitely make longer sleeves, even if I do short sleeves, because I really feel that I needed a longer sleeve to prevent that riding up. So those are a couple of issues that I had with this t-shirt, but I do still love how the yarn turned out. It's incredibly soft. This is Madison's merino, 100% merino sock weight yarn, and I held it double. And I gotta say, minimal pilling for 100% merino yarn. I am quite surprised at that. There is a bit of pilling compared to if I had chosen her merino nylon base, but I think the softness was worth the slightly extra pilling, and I'm honestly surprised at how little there is because I expected a lot more. Another pattern that I worked on at the beginning of spring and then put aside is my care sweater. This is another Rebecca Clow design, and this one has been put aside simply because it got hot. I absolutely love this pattern. It is living up to my vision, and I am so happy with it. I am a sucker for a blue and white color combo, especially like a royal blue and a bright white. It's not like super, super white because, of course, my skin tone doesn't look really good in pure white, but I have a bleached white wool from Lismore Sheep Farm held with a white mohair from Knit Picks, Aloft again, and I've used those for my main color, and then for my blue, I am using Jamieson and Smith of Shetland, their 2-ply jumper weight yarn, held with a strand of the Woolshed Lithadora on their mohair base. I had originally intended to use matching fingering from the Woolshed as well because I bought those yarns together to use for this colorwork pattern, but I had issues with dye runoff and I tried every trick in the trade that I could think of, as well as ones that my friends told me to get the dye to exhaust, and it just couldn't, so I didn't want to risk my beautiful white sweater with blue runoff, so I ended up buying some commercial dyed yarn instead, which does not have any runoff. I did do a little tester swatch. But this is the progress that I made on it since you last saw it in my spring knitting plans video, and it is now in hibernation because we're heading into summer, and this is just yarn that will felt if it gets too warm and too wet. And we have a very humid summer here in Nova Scotia, so I really didn't want to risk any sort of felting with this yarn because of sweaty hands while working on it. Also, I just really didn't want to work on a wintry sweater going into summer. Now, before I put it into hibernation, I had started with the neckline. The reason that neckline is not currently done is because I originally thought I wanted to do a little contrast hem to the neckline, but honestly, it just doesn't work with the blue. It works better in versions of this pattern that I've seen where the lighter color is the contrast color. It just really didn't look good with the dark blue. So I ended up just taking that blue off of the edge of the sweater, of the neckline, and I just haven't picked it back up. So once I pick it back up again, I think I am going to do a folded collar. I left it because I wasn't sure if I wanted just the single width collar, but I think I do want the folded collar. So at least it's picked up. I just need to go back, and this is sticky wool, so of course the stitches aren't going down. I might lose like a row, possibly two, but honestly, I'm not too concerned about that. It just means I don't have to pick it up again. But this pattern is going into hibernation. I'll bring it back out again maybe in the fall and get to working on it and hopefully finish it by the winter. I have one more project to share with you that was a whip in the spring that I worked on for a bit, and then it got put off to the side, and then after this I'll have all brand new things to share with you. So the last one I want to talk about is my bibliophile 2. So this is a pattern by Alicia Plummer, and I'm using loops and threads. It's a rainbow one. Do I remember the name of it? No, I don't remember the name of it, unfortunately. I do apologize about that. However, it's a discontinued yarn and you can't get it anymore anyway, but it was from Michaels. Also, apologies that some of my spring patterns that I was working on are looking a little frumpy. They've been shoved into tote bags for the past couple of months because I worked on them in the early spring and then quickly got distracted by other things. So these have been in tote bags probably since like late March, early April. But this is my Bibliophile 2. I really love this pattern. I had hoped that I would finish it in the springtime and be able to take pictures with spring flowers, but it's just not a priority right now just because I had other things come up that had deadlines, and you know how much I love deadlines. So I really put all my effort into those other projects, and this one just kind of went off to the side. I still want to finish it. This will probably just be more of a fall project now. Maybe I'll pull it out at the end of the summer once I get my other things done that I really need to get done. But I still love it. I'm really, really happy with it. I've made quite decent progress on the body. I think I only need to do maybe another 5 inches and then I can start doing the ribbing. This one is more of a hip length sweater, and I think I want to keep it that way because I really love the sweatshirt vibe of it. So I don't want to make this one a cropped sweater. I think I do want this one to be a nice full length sweater. So this will still require a bit of work on the body, and then I can do the sleeves. But I'm thinking that I'm going to do straight sleeves that will then come down into a balloon cuff, and I can just do some rapid decreases right before I do the cuff rather than doing tapered sleeves. I really think I'm going to like that more with this color palette and with the intended styling of it because it is kind of like a sweatshirt. I really want that big cozy feel. It is 100% acrylic, which it's not great for when it's hot or humid around here because that means I will sweat in it. But I love the colors and I know I will get a lot of wear out of this, particularly in the colder months. And I'm looking forward to having this as just like a really nice basic sweater in my closet. I will say when I talked about this in my spring knitting plans video, I had made a mistake on the collar. My collar was too long before and I had to take out about 1/2 inch. And part of me was kind of reluctant to do that because I had done such a nice job sewing down the folded collar and I really didn't want to have to do that again. But I knew that the collar was too long and I wasn't comfortable with it. As you can tell with my Lorett Tolstati, I don't like a high neckline. I like one that is more at the base of my throat. So I did take back the collar and I did it all over again. But I made a change with the neckline. Instead of doing a sewn down folded collar, I did a crochet join, which if you haven't done one before, let me introduce you to how stretchy it is. How crazy is that? This is going to be so comfortable. It is not at all tight around my neck and it can go up and over my neck so easily because of that added stretch. I did not get nearly that much stretch when I had it sewn down. That was a much tighter join. So if anything else, I'm just glad that I redid the neckline in order to learn the crochet join option. And now whenever I do a folded collar, that is going to be the join that I do so that I keep having a really nice stretchy neckline, not just where it's folded over, but also along where it's joined. It's actually been kind of fun going through the things that were originally my spring knitting plans because I haven't looked at some of those for a while, and it kind of shows the range of my knitting and how changeable my knitting endeavors can be, but it also makes me feel really good about the progress that I've made on them, and I feel very determined to pick them back up again after I've done some of my deadline knitting that I have for the summer. So, would you like to see some brand new things? I bet you would. Well, they're not technically brand new if you watch all of my videos, but These have only just made it into my podcast in the last episode or two, and these were not talked about in my spring knitting plans video. So they came about afterwards, after I filmed that video. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is a test knit that I joined. So at about early April time, I was looking at my stash and I had some yarns that I really wanted to use in brioche, doing 2-color brioche. And I'd really zeroed in on wanting to use them as 2-color brioche. And I was looking at patterns on Ravelry, mostly at sweaters, and nothing was really standing out to me as the right pattern for them. In fact, it's challenging to find brioche patterns on Ravelry that are not fingering weight. For whatever reason, people tend to do brioche with very small yarn, and I was looking for some yarns that I have that are worsted weight yarns. And then I saw a tester call shared by Autumn of Size Inclusive Collective for Creative Anarchy's Pineum sweater. And I instantly knew this was the type of pattern that I was looking for, because I was looking for a brioche pattern done in 2-color that I was able to make without doing anything complicated. Like, I didn't want to have a complicated stitch pattern in brioche. I wanted to have a very basic sweater. So I was looking at brioche raglans, but I wasn't a huge fan of them. This one was a bottom up dropped shoulder pattern, and it was all of those easy pieces of a brioche sweater that I was looking for, and Hannah of Creative Anarchy Yarns was looking for testers. So I signed up and I was accepted, and even though that was just in mid-April, I think the test started on the 15th of April and the deadline isn't until the 21st of July, and I'm recording this on the 16th of June, I think, 16th or 17th. I finished my sweater. Here's my finished Pineum sweater. And this is your first glimpse of the finished one. It has not gotten onto a podcast episode yet because I only had one sleeve left to do when I last shared it in my podcast. And as you can see, I have 2 sleeves now. Let me hang up this bed. Whoop. Well, I did hang it up, but I hung it up lower than I thought it was going to be. The plant caught it, thankfully, and the plant's okay. But this is my finished Pineum sweater, and I'm not going to try it on now just because I haven't even taken my final finished object photos with it, and I'm hoping to do that later today. We have a lupin field near our house, and although, if you don't know, lupins bloom every 2 years, and whoever originally planted this field, they always bloom better on even years than odd years, and we're in an odd year, so it's not quite as impressive as it has been in the past, but I'm really excited to hopefully take pictures in the lupin field because I have used a purple yarn as my contrasting color, and my main color is a teal, and I just think this will look so beautiful with the lupins. So I'm hoping to take those pictures later today, and then I'll show it off on my body in a video when I do my next podcast episode, which will probably be in another 2 weeks or so. Probably be sometime in July. So I'm so incredibly happy with this sweater, and I won't go into too much detail just because I'll save that for my podcast episode. But suffice it to say, I'm so happy with this pattern, and I loved every second of it. It was an incredibly addictive knit, and even though it was bottom up, even though it was 2-color brioche, this thing went fast, and I mean fast. I started mine, I think, on the 16th or 17th of April, and I finished it on the 10th of June or something like that. I don't know the actual dates. All I know is that this thing took me less than 2 months, and I'm shocked. I fully expected this to take me right up until the testing deadline, which is the 21st of July, and that's the reason why I signed up for the test knit. First of all, this is exactly the kind of pattern that I was looking for with this yarn in my stash. But second of all, it was such a comfortable deadline, and I felt very confident that it would be a testing period and a testing experience that I would feel comfortable participating in. So, and it has been a wonderful testing experience. Hannah has been so lovely to test for. I would highly recommend testing for her if you're interested. I would definitely test for her in the future. It was so laid back. It was so relaxed. She was incredibly receptive to feedback. She was incredibly understanding when we found errors or if, we needed to talk something through. At one point, I thought there was an error, but really it had been me highlighting the wrong number in my chart of what size I was following, and she was so sweet and understanding about it. 10 out of 10, great testing experience with her, and would do it again. But I'm so happy with my finished project as well. I have mainly used 2 yarns. My main color is Ravenswood Fiber Co. Merino Worsted on their color Standing Out in a Crowd. And the purple, for the most part, is Red Dwarf Fiber Studios Classic Worsted in the color Impressive Wingspan, which is her Resand tonal colorway. It's a beautiful tonal purple. But I didn't have quite enough for this pattern because I was using this in stash and I had that purple yarn left over from the hoodie that I made for my husband for our engagement photo shoot in 2022. I had over-ordered for that because I wanted to make sure that I didn't run out of yarn because I knew I would never be able to get that exact same color again. But I didn't have quite enough for this project, even though I had quite a bit. The yardage for this pattern is incredibly small for a 2-color brioche sweater, which has been amazing. I absolutely loved it. And it meant that I was able to use these small quantities of yarn that I had. But I ended up buying a secondary purple, which is, you can see from about here, there's a line, and this looks different than this. And that's because I had to buy another purple yarn in order to have enough yardage to finish this project. And I ended up buying Malabrigo Worsted in the color Violetas. And honest to goodness, other than this really bold line where you can see that it shifts, it blends in so nicely. When I was looking for a similar yarn to go with this pattern, I first went to my local yarn stores, but none of them had a purple that matched what I was looking for, even in a different size of yarn weight to hold together or something. And I was able to chat to people who had Red Dwarf Fiber Studios yarn in their stash, but it just wasn't the right size, and I was really hesitant to get some off of somebody else and still run out of yarn and then still have to find another yarn on top of that anyway. The Violetas was a little more accessible. I did have to get it off of Amazon, which I'm not happy about, but it's where it was available to me in this exact color. Now, Malabrigo yarn is sold for me locally here in Nova Scotia, but nobody had this color. And this one I think might be one of their discontinued colors or just one of their older colors because it was really challenging to find it anywhere online. None of the Canadian yarn stores that have online marketplaces where you can actually just buy online seemed to have it. So I was able to find it easily on Amazon, and that's where I ended up buying it. Not thrilled about that, but it's what I needed to get to finish my sweater. And the color is almost identical. So if I'd have done helical knitting, you probably would never have known, but I've never even done helical knitting in stockinette. I'm not about to start in 2-color brioche. So I decided to use it on the back panel, on the upper panel, and I'm really happy with my choice. I never look at the back of my sweater, so that's not going to bother me. I won't see that when I'm looking in the mirror or anything. And honestly, it still camouflages enough because it is the contrasting color of the 2-color brioche. So not the end of the world that it's slightly different, and it enabled me to be able to do this pattern and use up some stash yarn. I used up every single scrap of the Red Dwarf Fiber Studios worsted yarn. In fact, after I bound off the second sleeve, I think I had a piece of purple this long, and that was it. So I really used every scrap of the Red Dwarf Fiber Studios yarn. I do still have a little bit of the teal yarn I will probably make a hat or some accessory with it because it is a beautiful teal color. I do love it. And I have half a ball of the Malabrigo worsted left. So I only had to use half of a ball for that back panel. So yardage goes pretty far in this pattern. But I'm so happy with it, and it's a pattern that I highly recommend, and I can't wait to wear it when it gets all cool outside and I can be nice and cozy and snuggly in my super squishy sweater. So that was my first sort of surprise project of the spring that took me away from my other spring knitting projects. So I spoke earlier in the video about how I've been working on some projects that have deadlines. The Pineum sweater was the first project with a deadline, and the next one is a baby blanket. This is the Good Morning Blanket by Pearl Soho, and it is a baby blanket for some friends of ours who are expecting. Their baby is due at the end of September, but they're hosting their shower in August. So ideally, I would like to get this done for the shower in August, but also it's going to be much bigger than it currently is, and that will take some time. So if I don't get it done until the baby is born, that'll be okay with parents. It's also okay with me, but I would like to get this done soon-ish. It's one of two patterns that I'm working on pretty exclusively right now. So not completely monogamous, but a couple that are monogamous-ish. So this is the Good Morning Blanket, and I'm so happy with it so far. I have made some color changes. The original pattern has you do a section of white and black and tan, like all neutrals. I'm not doing neutrals in a baby blanket, thank you very much. I'm doing a full rainbow blanket. Also, the parents specifically requested a baby blanket that was a rainbow. They gave me full reign to make that rainbow however I wanted, and this was the pattern that I chose. And I'm so excited that I did it, because the reason I chose this particular pattern is because looking at the stripes made it seem like it was going to be very potato chippy, which is, if you haven't heard that expression, it just means that something that you keep wanting to have a little more and work on a little more, kind of like when you eat a bag of potato chips and you keep wanting, oh, just another chip, I'll just have another chip. Because I knew a blanket is a larger project, I needed something to help encourage me to get through the big project. So I decided on this one because all the different stripes, you would want to just get to the next stripe and just get to the next stripe. It's also really fun because you started off with this white rectangle, which you then put those stitches on hold, and then you picked up along the side and started going up into the blues. When you finished all 4 blues, you put those stitches on hold, and you picked up along the side here and started doing the purples in this direction, put them on hold, which is what this string is right here, and then you picked up along the side, and you both picked up the stitches that were live as well as picked up the edge stitches of the purple and kept going with that. I decided to start with both blue and purple and build outwards. So the blue side is going to be going blue, teal, green, yellow. And I am only doing 3 sections of 4 stripes. So there will be a bit of green in the teal section as well as in the yellow section. So it'll just kind of continue like that so that I could get all the colors that I had. And this side will go purple, pink, orange, and red. So it'll end off with yellow on this side and orange on this side. So it'll be 2 congruous colors at the top, and it'll be 2 rainbows. One will be the cool tone rainbow up to the yellow, which is a warm shade, and this one will be the warm shades all the way up to the red and the orange. But I think it's going to look really, really cool. I do have a photo of what my final color choices are as of this morning, because I was playing around with them over the past couple of days this past weekend, and that's what I've decided on for how I want the colors to go, and I'm really happy with it. I am on to my second teal color right now, and you're probably thinking as you look at this, that's probably a heck of a lot of ends to weave in, isn't it? It is and it isn't, because I have found a fun way to work my ends in as I go. So I'm not using the weave-in Steven method, I'm using a different one, which I can include in the description box below. But essentially, every time I do a new color, I weave in my ends at that time. So I will have started off with the teal, and then as I start knitting with the teal, I weave in the tail from joining that new color. And then when I get to the new color, I will weave in the tail of the new color, and then when I come back around and I start this side again, I will weave in the tail of the end of the teal with this new lighter teal, I guess. They have individual names, but I can't remember them at this exact moment. But either way, what I do is I weave them both in along the part where I start with them, and when I get to the end of weaving in both ends, I tie a knot. It does look a little messy on the back. It could have been better, but it looks a heck of a lot better than if I had to have done it myself with my darning needle afterwards. So it's as neat as I can make it, and I'm pretty confident that it'll stay together. I even wove in the end from where I started with the tail of the white. I just need to weave this in a little further into the body of the blanket, just so that this isn't flopping about on the end like this. But otherwise, they're all well on the back. It's really easy to tell what's the front and what's the back. And I think it looks incredibly crisp and clean on the right side. And I'm so happy with this project. So I'm really enjoying working on this. I worked on this on Saturday for my local Knit in Public day. So I was working on that, and I got the entire first teal stripe done when I was knitting in public, and I have joined the next tealy color, and it's been such a great project to work on. It's a really good one for when I'm socially knitting because it's just garter stitch. Every row is knitting. With the initial stripe sequence, I'm not following the pattern exactly because I did not get gauge, but it is a blanket. Gauge doesn't really matter. I knit the rectangle, the white rectangle, until I was happy with the size because it wanted you to do 90 ridges and I was at 60 ridges, and I thought, I think this is good enough. Otherwise, it's going to be really, really big and it's going to be awkward and it's going to take forever. So I did stop a little early. So my sections are a bit smaller, but it's fine. I'm totally happy with it. The first section of blue and the section of purple, I have done 10 garter ridges per stripe. Now that I have picked up more stitches, for the teal section, I'm doing 8 garter ridges before switching to a new color. And then when I get to the next section, so the third set of stripes for each side, I will do 6 ridges. And that's if I can get 6. I might not be able to because the rows are going to be quite long at that point, but that is the hope. But I'm really, really happy with this project. It's been going so well. This is Hobie Friends 8/8 cotton, and it's incredibly soft. And it also is machine washable and dryable, so the new parents will be able to just toss it in the laundry if it gets dirty. And I'm loving it. The more I work with it, the softer it is. I know some people complain about how cotton sucks the moisture out of their hands. I have not found that with this cotton at all. I've been really, really happy with it. And I just think it's going to be a beloved baby blanket when it's done. So before I cast on that baby blanket, I was working on another cotton project, which I shared for the first time in my Me Made May video series. And that is the Toivo tee, which if you have seen my Me Made May videos, and if you have seen my most recent podcast episode, this looks exactly the same because I have not worked on this at all. And that's because I've really been prioritizing the baby blanket. I was also prioritizing my Pineum sweater, which I was wrapping up in early June. So this one sadly got put off to the side, but I am looking forward to making some more progress on it this summer. I just don't think I'm going to finish it until possibly the end of the summer, maybe even the early fall, simply because this is a project that is hard on the hands. And it's not the yarn that I find that's hard on the hands necessarily. It is the lace pattern. And this yarn is absolutely beautiful. It was very kindly gifted to me by my friend Madison of Fleurange Apparel. So some more of her yarn. This is from her Spring Summer Core collection, which is all cotton yarn. It's cotton blends. So I have chosen her cotton merino fingering weight yarn, which is 70% cotton and 30% merino, and it is super, super soft. It is also machine washable because when I did my swatch for this, I put my swatch through the washer and the dryer because I really wanted to be able to chuck this into the washer and dryer because I know more agitation softens cotton, and I really wanted to get a sense as to whether or not the merino could survive going through the washer and dryer, and surprisingly, it made it out perfect. So I got perfect gauge after tossing it in the washer and the dryer, so I was super happy with that. And I'm really, really happy with the start of this project. I originally was offered these colors by Madison and instantly knew I wanted her yellow, which is Loyalty, but I don't have the right skin tone to wear this shade of yellow. I'm more of a mustard yellow face. So I knew I had to pair it with other colors. And when I looked at patterns in my favorites in Ravelry that were either 2-color or 3-color, I landed on a 3-color pattern, which is the Toivoti. And I knew I wanted to use her pale blue and her pale purple. So the pale blue is patience and the pale purple is empathy. And these have just turned out so beautiful together. I'm such a big fan of this color combo. The way the pattern works, it starts off with this ribbing at the top. This is the back panel, by the way, so there are short rows in this ribbing. And then you move on to the lace pattern, and then you do these stockinette stripe sections in the yellow that are bracketed by some purl ridges in the blue. So all of your colors are separated by this blue. That kind of is your accent color in between them. And I just love the pattern. I think it looks so cool. But I absolutely love working on the Toivoti. And this was very kindly gifted to me by a friend. So I am working with a pattern and yarn that are all gifted to me by some of my friends. So I feel very, very grateful and lucky for that. So thank you to my lovely friends. But this is a pattern that I do want to get some more work into. It's just one that requires some attention. So now that I've finished the Pineum sweater, this might become my at-home project because I can put my lace chart on a document holder right next to me while I'm sitting on the couch and I can look at it while I'm working on it. Because even though I'm on a stockinette section now, I still need to pay attention to which row of the pattern that I'm on, and I need to get it to a point where it meets a certain measurement, and then I can put the stitches on hold and pick up for the front panels. It's just one that's not getting my main attention right now, but I really would like to work on this summer. It's one that I think I will get a lot of wear out of, and it's going to be so pretty for the summer because of those colors. Late spring was definitely a period where I was picking up a lot of things, so I have a lot of projects that are in the early stages. Now the Pineum sweater I started and finished in the spring, so that one is off the table, but I have a couple more that are ones that I am just getting going with or that I'm partway through, some of which have to go on hold for the projects that have deadlines, such as the baby blanket and one other project coming up. But I have one more pattern to share with you that is something that I picked up that I had started before that I'm still slowly working on, and that is my Tolsta Tank, which doesn't look like a tank top right now, but that's because it's a bottom-up tank top. I've had success with some bottom-up patterns this year, and it has given me a bit of confidence with bottom-up patterns again. So I am eagerly trying out some bottom-up patterns that I feel comfortable taking on, especially if they're from designers that I really trust, like Rebecca Clow. And this one I'm particularly excited about because I am doing some bust shaping with this, which is why it's kind of stuck at this point right now. I have my stitch markers in for my vertical bust shaping, but I just haven't been able to sit down and do the rows and check them off and pay attention to that section. So once I'm able to do that, this will be able to progress a bit more. But as the theme of this video is, I have to pay attention to my deadline projects first. And this one is not a deadline one. This was just a fun one that I picked up because when my Pineum sweater got too big that I didn't want to keep dragging it back and forth to and from work. I needed another small project to work on, and this was the one that I picked up because my work knitting group and I are doing a very casual knit along of tank tops. And my friend Robin and I were both doing the Tolsta Tank. Robin has since finished hers. Robin's also a faster knitter than me. Even though she thinks I was fast with my Pineum sweater, I think she's the faster knitter between the two of us. And she got hers done a lot sooner than me. But that's okay. I am happy to be working on this one. I'm going to be really excited to get it to the point where you can start to see the shaping of the tank top once I have like a front panel and a back panel. Because once I have that, I'm going to try it on, because this one I was originally knitting it as a way of getting a pattern like the Beignets tank top, which is just a basic like crew neck tank top that I knit last summer, that even though the pattern absolutely did not work out and I had to very severely modify that pattern in order to work for me, I was hoping for something that looks similar to that, and Rebecca Clo's pattern looks similar, but it's properly shaped because she is a designer that really pays attention to fit for all sizes, and she includes bust shaping and everything. So I'm really excited to try that out. But I'm also thinking I have a lot of this yarn left over, and I will have maybe an entire ball left over afterwards. So I'm thinking once I finish the tank top, instead of doing ribbing along the armholes, I might pick up and do little cap sleeves. So it would look kind of like a set-in sleeve. So I'm curious about doing that. I will not decide until I finish the tank top minus the armhole ribbing, and then I will decide. But the reason that I'm thinking of doing that is because I will have some extra yarn left over, but I have some other yarn that I'm going to share in the next section of things that I want to cast on in the summer that has a yarn that's a very similar color to this that will be used for a tank top. But before I get to that, I have one more whip to talk about before I get on to my probably lofty goals of things that I want to cast on in the summer. An alternate title for this video could be, how many Rebecca Clo patterns can I make at once? Because the next pattern that I have to show you, my last work in progress, is a test knit for Rebecca Clo. It is her Firth Sweater, which does not look like much at the moment. I have only just started the back panel, and this is one of those times where I'm glad I'm a slow knitter, because there have been some issues to work out with the shaping, and I'm so glad that I don't have to frog because I haven't reached that point yet. But that's what testing is all about, and I'm very grateful to the knitters who found those issues. I will reap your rewards, thankfully, or gratefully rather. But this is a pattern that I have had my eye on since Rebecca first showed it off, I think in November of last year. And I have been diligently watching for this. I didn't necessarily feel that I had to test it, but I was looking for when it was going to come out. This pattern will be released in September, but I am working on it now because Rebecca has such a great timeline for the test. It is a 13-week test, and I'm so grateful that Rebecca can do such long tests like that, because it makes me feel very comfortable taking part. And I really wish that more designers had a longer testing timeline as the default. There's been a lot of action lately with particular designers, a lot of big name designers who are offering 4 weeks, 6 weeks to test full sweaters or dresses, 2 weeks for a tank top. It's just been insane. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't sit and knit for 12 hours a day to crack out a pattern in a testing timeline that short. It's too stressful. It's too, like, it's going to give me carpal tunnel, or it's going to give me like arm pain, wrist pain, hand pain. I can't do it. So I ignore those tests completely. No, thank you. If I really like the pattern, I'll buy it when it comes out. But Rebecca has been one of those outlier designers who has been really pushing the boundaries to the length of time that she can do for a testing timeline. And it has been so wonderful to see because it means that she values the larger testers and she is making the environment really accessible for us as larger participants in a test. So I'm making size 6, which is not the largest size. The pattern has 9 sizes, but I'm going to be doing the largest size bust shaping, which is F cup bust shaping, because this is meant to be a very fitted sweater. It is a set-in sleeve, which is one of my favorite constructions. I do personally feel that a set-in sleeve gives me the best fit of a sweater. Case in point, my romance cardigan, which is one of my favorite pieces that I have. And it features this beautiful ribbed detail on the edge, which goes along the edge of the back panel on both sides as well as on the front panel, and then joins under the arm and creates this beautiful, almost like panel on the side of ribbing. And I love how chic that looks. So I am using some very special yarn to do this test knit. And I bought this yarn before I saw Rebecca's pattern. And once I saw that pattern, I knew I was going to save this yarn to use for this design. I didn't know if I would test it or not, but I chose to join the test knit because I was just wrapping up my Pineum sweater. It was a 13-week test. I've never applied to test knit for Rebecca before, but I do know that it can be quite cutthroat. She only leaves it open for a couple of days because it's so popular. And I thought, I think this is going to be the right one for me to participate in. And luckily I got accepted. I was really excited about that because I know that it is a very competitive environment. I do know at least one of my friends on the internet who also applied but did not get accepted to this test. So Rebecca is trying to cycle in new testers and try not to have too many of the same ones so that new people get to look at her patterns and give different feedback than people who have participated before would give. And I think that's a great way for her to get fresh feedback for her pattern designs. And I'm really lucky. I feel really grateful that I was one of the newbies that got selected this time. But this yarn, which is what I was talking about before, I keep getting off on a tangent. This yarn is incredibly special to me. It is yarn that I picked up when I was in Dublin on a layover coming back from my honeymoon in Portugal. I got to go to This Is Knit, which is a yarn store that I have been following on social media for a long time. And I was so excited to go to the store. Doyle can attest, I was like a kid in a candy shop getting to go there, and I was when I first saw it when we walked into Powers Court, I was just so excited. I'm like, Doyle, there it is. Like, I was acting like a kid. I was so excited because this was such a well-known yarn shop to me. So Doyle can attest to how excited I was to go to this yarn store, and once I got in there, I knew I wanted to buy some of their in-house yarn brand, which is Townhouse Yarns. And at the time, I was thinking of another Lento sweater or something similar for the yarns. So I was looking at getting a fingering and a mohair, and I fell in love with this color. This is Smoke and Mirrors, and it's a very changeable color, but it is primarily this dusty purple. And I absolutely love this color. I bought it on their Abbey lace base, which is the mohair, and their Fade Street 4-ply, I think it's called, but it is a single plied yarn, even though the name is 4-ply, but over in the UK they use 4-ply to describe fingering. But I'm using a single ply fingering yarn and a mohair held together to knit the DK weight version of the Firth Sweater. And I love this pattern so much. And I love how the yarn is knitting up. It's incredibly soft. I got gauge with a bigger needle than the pattern suggested, but that's to be expected because Rebecca is a looser knitter than me. So I am up a needle size comparatively to the pattern, but that's okay. And I can't wait to have this and wear this. And I'm just so excited about it. So that is my last work in progress. And now let me talk about just a couple possible cast-ons for the summer. So I've been really lucky to have been given a lot of exciting opportunities over the past couple of weeks, both with being accepted to some test knits that I was really interested in, starting the baby blanket, which is really, really fun. But I've also been given the opportunity to expand my knitting profession. And by that, I mean I've been given some affiliate opportunities, and I'm going to be talking about one of them now because I have recently been gifted some yarn from a friend of mine who is a yarn dyer in Alberta, who I am now an affiliate for her yarn company. And that is my friend Katrin of Création Miss Couture Yarns. And Katrin is a Quebecois dyer based out of Alberta, and she has very kindly gifted me some of her yarn. She gave me free rein to choose whichever of her bases and colors that I wanted, and I've been gifted yarn a couple of times lately. Like I've mentioned, I have a couple from my friend Madison of Florange Apparel. I wanted to be very thoughtful with what I chose because I do have quite a large yarn stash, and I really wanted to make something with Katrin's yarn that I was going to absolutely love. And I think I chose the perfect pattern to use this gorgeous blue. This color is the Guardian on her classic sock base. And this is from her Star Wars collection, which originally was for sale March and April. And this one is 80/20 merino nylon. Now, that collection has ended, but it is coming back next year as a dyed to order collection, which means that it'll be on her website as colors that you can choose at any point to get whatever quantity that you want. And I chose her sock base, and I chose to get 3 of them because I'm going to be knitting one of my favorite patterns. Like I said, I wanted to be very thoughtful with the project that I was going to make with them. And I am going to be making another 03 ribbed cami because I love my pink version so much. I wear it all the time. I love how versatile it is. I love how enjoyable it was to knit. And I wear my pink version a lot, and I thought, I also wear a lot of blue, so why don't I make a blue version? So that is what these are going to be used for. I will, of course, be holding the sock yarn double. Now, I know that pattern was designed using worsted weight cotton yarn. However, I got perfect gauge holding Hedgehog Fibers sock yarn double, and I wanted to do the exact same thing with some of Katrin's yarn. So that is what I am choosing to make with this yarn, and I would really love to get that started this summer and hopefully finish by late summer, maybe early fall. But as you can see, I have quite a lot of things to work on. But that is something that I would really like to do. And the reason why, when I was talking about my Tolsta tank, I said I might want to turn that into a t-shirt is because I think I know why I liked this color, Katrin. Because I already have some. Except this is a Michaels colorway. This is a rayon from Bamboo. It's a totally different yarn. But do I want 2 tank tops of the exact same color blue? I don't think I do. I might, because they're 2 different tank tops. If I was to follow the Tolsta tank as it's written, this one is going to be a round neck, wide strapped tank top. This would be a V-neck, thin strapped tank top, and this would be all ribbing versus this one is stockinette. But I do feel like I might want a blue t-shirt and a blue tank top. So I have not decided yet which one I will do, but I might end up with 2 tank tops that are the exact same color blue from 2 completely different yarns. And I think that's hilarious because I love this like really bright, when you think of the color blue, this is kind of like that perfect blue shade that you think of. It looks just like the emoji blue. So I'm drawn to that color so much. So it was so funny when this arrived and it looked identical to that project, but it's okay. It's a color I absolutely love, and I know I will absolutely love another O3 ribbed cami in another color so that I can keep wearing that particular pattern because it's something that I get a lot of wear out of. So if you are at all interested in Catherine's yarn, like I said, this color is not available yet, but I would like to share that if you are interested in purchasing any of her yarns, I have an affiliate link. So at no cost to you, if you use my link that I have included down below, I will get a small kickback. And it's just another way that you can support me and my channel. And it would be very, very appreciated that if you do like any of her yarns, if you do use my link, that will help me out a little bit. She has some beautiful yarns. She recently did an Anne of Green Gables collection, and she has some beautiful in-stock yarns and other dyed-to-order collections on her website. So I do highly encourage you to check that out, especially if you are a Canadian shopper. She is based in Alberta, so she is a Canadian yarn dyer, which means that you don't have to worry about duty. You just need to cover shipping costs. And like I said, at no cost to you, if you use my link that I've included down below, it will give me a little bit of a kickback. And I would really appreciate it if you chose to use it. But of course, no pressure whatsoever. I know this video is going pretty long, but I just have one more potential cast on to talk about. And this one is absolutely a blue sky option. Ironically, though, the other yarn looks like a blue sky. But what I mean by a blue sky cast on is that if I get everything that I want done and I'm reaching for the sky, like reaching for the stars type thing, this will be the cast on that I do. But I am in no way expecting to get to this project. I'm just putting it out there that I really want to make it. And it is using some absolutely stunning yarn that I've had in my stash for a long time. Making the Pineum sweater has both whetted my appetite for more brioche, but also for using more of my stash yarn. And there was a pattern in my queue that's been in my queue for I think 4 years, if not longer. But it is a brioche yoke sweater made using fingering yarn. And it's one that I had the yarn first, and I was keeping the yarn for the absolute perfect pattern, and I think this is the absolute perfect pattern for it. The pattern is the Lizzie sweater by Sosu Knits, and I absolutely love the brioche triangles on it, and it's one that I have been feeling very nervous about, very hesitant, because before I did the Pineum sweater, I had never done a brioche garment. I had only ever done brioche accessories, and I really felt out of touch with brioche because it had been several years since I did it. The last time I did brioche was probably 2020. But doing the Pineum sweater has reminded me brioche is not as complicated as you think it is. Like, learning it for the first time, it definitely is complicated. But once you get it down, it's an incredibly tranquil stitch. It's very mindful. You get caught up in the repetition of it. And I thought, once I did the Pineum sweater, okay, I feel more comfortable with my brioche sweater knitting skills. Maybe it's time to tackle the Lizzie sweater. And I have been saving this yarn for that pattern because when I initially bought it, this is one of my favorite yarns in my stash, and I knew I couldn't waste it on a pattern that wasn't perfect. And I think the Lizzie sweater is the perfect pattern for it. It's Hedgehog Fibers. Hedgehog Fibers was the very first hand-dyed yarn that I encountered. Not in person, I encountered it on Pinterest, and the very first color that I saw was this gorgeous green yarn, and this is the color Fly. It is still hands down one of my favorite yarn colors that I have ever seen. And it's really this like neon pistachio green with like speckles of other colors. And the thing with the Fly color specifically is that there must be 2 different kinds of people who dye this yarn, because you can either get this beautiful pistachio green or a much more punchy lime green. And I liked the pistachio green the most. So when I saw this in person at a yarn store in Florida that no longer exists, I bought every skein she had, and she only had 3. And me being a bigger person, I didn't think I'd be able to get a full sweater with the green, so I thought maybe I would get like a short sleeve sweater. And then whatever year that I saw this, like 2018, 19, 20, the Lizzie sweater, and I saw it, she does use a color similar to this as the main color on her sweater. I just knew looking at it, that's the pattern for this yarn that I have in my stash that I've been holding on to for so long. And I had other yarns in my stash, including this single skein of purpley pink, which is from We Love Knitting, which is a now defunct yarn dyeing company. For a while, they were also like a pattern company, but I don't even think they're really around for that now either. They are based in Australia, so I don't really know what happened to them. But I had bought a couple of their skeins. They were another like early hand dyer that I found on the internet. I found these guys through Instagram. And looking in my stash one time, once I saw the Lizzie sweater pattern and seeing these yarns together, I just knew they were meant to be together. So I am going to be using these colors for the Lizzie sweater, using the fly as the main color and the purpley pink from We Love Knitting as the contrast color for the brioche yoke. And potentially as like cuffs and a hem for ribbed cuffs and the ribbed hem. But jury's out on that. I'll wait and see how much of this I have left after doing the yoke. But I'm really excited to eventually make this. And now that I've done the Pineum sweater and I've brushed up on my brioche knitting skills, I feel like I want to get this done this year. The other reason why I want to get this done this year is because my theme for 2025 is focus. And part of that focus is taking on more challenging patterns that require me to think a bit more. I feel like because 2024 was follow the joy, because 2024 was a very difficult year for us, and the years before that were also challenging as well, that I just needed comfort knitting in 2024. I'm finding with 2025, I'm ready to exercise my skills again and ready to push my brain and work on some more involved knitting patterns. So not a top-down stockinette sweater, although as you have seen, I have some top-down stockinette sweaters on the needles. But the thing is, I want to make sure that I'm also working on patterns that will use my brain. So I had the Pineum sweater, which was a brioche sweater. It was also a test knit. I'm now in Rebecca Clo's Firth Sweater test knit. I'm doing bust shaping in the Tolsta Tank. I've got a couple of things on the go that are making me need to think. And I think it's the right time to do the Lizzie sweater. Whether it gets done this year or I at least start it in 2025 and keep it going into 2026, that remains to be seen. But I just feel ready to do it now. And I think this is going to be the year. Because of the colors, I think it would be really fun to at least start it in the summer. But as you've seen, I have a lot on the go, a lot that I need to get done. And I don't spend all of my time knitting. I also like to read. I also need to work. I work full time. I love to get out with friends. Doyle and I are getting into watching soccer, which if I'm watching it at home, of course I can knit while watching the game at home. But if we go to the game, I can't really knit during the game unless it's something really small. But I'm really feeling like I want to at least start this sweater this year, possibly even this summer, but we'll wait and see. Well, this turned out to be a longer video than I thought it was going to be. If you've made it all the way till the end, thank you so much for sticking it out. I really, really appreciate it. I know not everybody likes long form content, so I really do appreciate if you watch the videos all the way through, and I really hope you enjoyed what I shared today in my summer knitting plans video. So I have a lot to keep me busy in the summer. Obviously, I'm not at all expecting to make progress on all of these things. Like I mentioned, a couple of my projects that I had worked on at the beginning of the spring have now gone into hibernation and won't get worked on again until possibly the fall. but I don't feel like I'm out of touch with them. I do still feel connected to them. I do still see them in my section over in the other corner of the living room where I keep all of my yarn supplies that I'm currently working with. And I do feel like I'm going to keep an eye on them, and I will bring them back out again. I'm really excited to get to have them once I have more time to knit on them, but some other projects have taken a little bit of a priority. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And if you're new here, thank you so much for coming back. It really means a lot to me. While you're here, it would help my channel if you could like this video, subscribe to my channel, and please leave me a comment below. Let me know which of these projects you're excited about. Are you working on any fun projects for the summer? Let's have a great conversation in the comments. Again, if you would like to support me by using my affiliate link with Création Miss Couture Yarns, I will include that in the description box below. Check out some of Catherine's yarns. They are absolutely beautiful, and I am excited to get to make my new project with her yarns. Like I said, at no cost to you, if you do use my link, it gives me a little bit of a kickback, and you can support me that way. Thank you so much for watching, especially till the end here. It has been a long journey, but I hope you all take care and happy summer knitting!